Language Team at IOR Global Services. I'm Rita, and today I'm having some lovely pastina soup. I'm enjoying my virtual lunch hour with my colleagues.
Hi, I'm Christina, and today I'm eating a healthy veggie salad with mozzarella and sesame seeds.
That sounds good.
Yum. I'm Lori, and my lunch is a sandwich from last night's leftovers, but it's still really good.
Sounds delicious. Well, thanks for sharing your lunchtime with us. This new Language at Lunch series will be a combination of podcasts, interviews with teachers, and maybe even blogs to help you hone in on specific skills in the language classroom. We'll start with listening, and we'll spend time focusing on each skill, including reading, writing, and of course, speaking. Just like a listening activity, this podcast doesn't have a visual aspect. We hope you don't have any trouble following along, but if you do, don't forget that feeling. Our goal is to give you some tools to be able to avoid that feeling of discomfort during listening activities in your classroom and have your students feel right at home.
I just realized right now that I'm the only one here that is a non-native speaker of English. So I can very well relate to listening being a very, complex skill and a very hard thing to acquire. And I can speak from my personal experience. I want to share a story with you guys, and I hope you enjoy it. Many, many years ago, I won't tell how many, just for you not to understand how old I am. Just kidding. Many years ago, that was 10 years before I moved to the United States. And a little disclaimer here, before that situation, I had never spoken to an American person. So that was an absolutely new experience for me. I spoke English. I was pretty good at it. I was one of the best students of the university I attended. And I was invited to interpret for a group of American people coming from Alabama and Texas. And I said, oh, of course, I'll do that. I was very eager to do that since it was my first interpreting experience as well. So I met a group of people. They were very nice, very friendly. I loved them. I got on well with them. It was just a wonderful experience. And especially with this one lady from Alabama and her husband. I was mostly working with them for a couple of days. And there was a situation, we talked, we just chatted in between meetings and events, and just, I asked about their lives, they asked about mine. And at one point she asked me a question. I did understand it was a question because, of the tone of her voice. She asked me a question, and I did not understand a word out of that question, not even one. I realized it was a general question starting with do you, so it's something about me. I have to answer either yes or no, right? So I said yes, just very briefly, and then I wanted to change the subject, but then I looked at her face, and she was shocked. Her eyes were very big.
Oh no!
She looked at me, and she asked yes, really shocked, not just surprised, but shocked. And I go, oh no, I'm just kidding, and I changed the subject quickly. So this is my personal story of a situation when I did not understand. By listening to a person, I did not understand what they were saying, what they were referring to. I had no idea what was going on. And because I was young and inexperienced, I did not feel comfortable asking her to repeat the question. I did not feel comfortable showing my ignorance or, something that I did not understand. I just didn't want to do it. I was very emotional. I was embarrassed. There was a lot of embarrassment involved, and I just didn't want to show my embarrassment. So I changed the subject. Even today, I don't know what she asked me and what I answered to. I have no idea. So that's the funny part of it. But I want to say that listening is a complicated skill, but it is a skill. And we always have to remember it's a skill. And we have to remind our students, you can acquire this skill. You can practice and you can improve it just like any other skill of the language. And I think it's important to remind them that one day it will get better. You will improve. The more you practice, the better it will become. And today we'd like to talk about a way to approach listening in the classroom. So we'll start by a very important point that I believe some teachers might forget about or just don't think it's necessary or important, but it's pre-teaching. And I believe that this is the core. This is the most essential part. So you could start with introducing the topic of the listening by engaging the student into this topic and asking questions just in general, what they think about it or what's their opinion on it. Make them interested in this topic, and then have some kind of text orientation, which basically is again, enhancing their understanding. The more you pre-teach, the easier it is for them to listen and to understand. I would also, at this point, I would also pre-teach vocabulary. Any points that you find either complicated for them or new or something that you think is important, you could start this by doing it here. So actually, before the real listening activity, you can already have them listen to this track or to this interview or this song a couple times, just for general, idea. And this will really enhance their understanding when they really get to complete the activity later.
Do you think that there would be some challenges when you do the pre-teaching? I mean,
oh, absolutely.
It'd be hard. You might get distracted, or they might feel overwhelmed hearing different words and things.
Yeah. What do you think could be the challenges here when they hear the new words?
Well, first of all, I wonder, they might worry about the accent they might hear, or if it's authentic, somebody might speak too quickly. And if they're trying to prepare as part of the pre-teaching, is there any way that you can, should you affirm to the student? Yeah, it could be really difficult, and help the student focus on the tools to understand what they need.
I agree.
And I think probably the main goal is to help create a really good listening environment, and not get, and really try and help the student not get too wrapped up on.
Absolutely. And things like that text orientation can help the student understand what they're listening to. At that step, you're really telling them this is an interview. So you'll hear two people speaking, they'll go back and forth. So even giving them a little clue like that can give them the insight into the structure, so that they're not worrying about the structure. They know what to expect, and they can use their working memory to focus on listening.
And they would definitely be more comfortable knowing that before they listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, makes sense.
Just like in your story, Christina, it made this listening misunderstanding made you feel very uncomfortable and embarrassed, and that can make a language lesson very challenging to move past that. So setting the stage.
If that happened today, I would absolutely ask to repeat or to explain or to clarify. But that happened many years ago, so I wasn't ready for that. Yeah, but we have to make sure our students are comfortable, that they're in this comfortable listening environment, and they know what we ask of them, and they know what we expect of them. Mm-hmm. So this is pre-teaching, and then the main activity would be actually listening. And again, we have to remember that depending on your student's level of language you are teaching them, you can listen multiple times. You can have them listen 2 times. You can have them listen 3, 4 times. If you see that they're still worrying about it and they don't really understand, and you see, you can tell by the student if they're ready to proceed with the activity, or if they need to listen again. So you can totally do that. Just make sure you don't listen back to back, because it would just make it more complicated. Make sure that there is some feedback in between. For example, there is first time that they listen. Before that, you ask them a specific question about the gist, about the general idea. Then they listen and they respond, and you can discuss the general idea. After that, they listen for details. Once again, you ask them questions before, they listen for details, and then there is this feedback time after that. It's very important to have this not back to back, but spread out, and having some time to, rest, relax, and also hear their feedback on that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, taking the time to rest and relax, because I know when I'm learning something and listening to something new, my brain just kind of walks all over the place. It's like, okay, what was I supposed to listen for? Or is it just a word or a sentence? And so I like that idea about stopping and getting that feedback, sorting it out.
Definitely. Right. And you can increase the level of detail that you're looking for with each listen. So at first, like Christina mentioned, you're just going for the gist, and then you're looking for something else, and then something else a little harder. And maybe at the very end, you have to formulate your own opinion about what you've heard. So you can, step up those levels depending on where your student is and, how they're progressing.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Christina, can you give us some more detail about the questions that you would ask your student in this activity? What kind of format does that happen in?
This could be absolutely any kind of activity. So question when it's about the gist, just before the first listening, you can ask for the general idea. What's this about? Or how do you think where this is happening? Or who is talking? Or who are these people in an interview? Something like that. But when it comes to detail, this could be absolutely anything. True or false activity, for example, or compare and contrast, anything. Or is it true that, and you make a statement and then they listen and they have to respond, or just some specific questions about the details, depending on what it is. But make sure that the questions are prepared and they're given to the student, they're provided to the student before the listening. They have to read the questions. You have to make sure that they understand the questions first, and only then you proceed with the listening, and then they can respond to that. Because I know that even my teachers made this mistake of not providing the questions before and then just asking you to listen, and then they provide the questions. But when I was listening, I don't know what I was listening for. I was just sitting there and listening for everything and nothing at the same time. So it doesn't really make sense. Just make sure that you prepare the questions and you provide them before the listening. And this would really, again, enhance their understanding.
And so if this is a virtual lesson, then you would just share it on the whiteboard, or give them a document, email it or something.
Yeah, I'm sure there are tons of ways teachers could do that, but it's important to provide the questions before.
Definitely. Like we mentioned earlier, a student only has so much working memory. They can only hold on to so many new pieces of information at a time, or keep their mind open for new information. There's a limit to what they can work on at once. So really honing in and focusing your student on the specific thing they're looking for, like they're looking for a number, they're looking for an adjective, or maybe they're looking for an entire quote. Giving them those clues in advance are very beneficial.
Yes.
Awesome. So a natural follow-up to a listening activity is speaking. So you can always prepare talking points to capture your students' spontaneous thoughts and hear what they understood from the whole listening activity once you're done. It's a great way to kind of step back from the activity and really talk about language and language learning and those metacognitive processes. Really help your student to understand what they just went through. And it can be, as we mentioned, it can be very challenging. So discussing those challenges or discussing the activity even further can really help solidify what you've just done.
Right.
So what we would like to end each of our podcast episodes with is an activity for all of our lovely teachers to take into the classroom, adapt in any way you see fit for your students. And we would like to give you a song activity to use. This activity is actually linked in the email you got this podcast link from. So go back to that email if you want some more details on this. But using songs is a really great way to incorporate fun and culture into a listening activity. But we have built an activity around the song Have It All by Jason Mraz. And of course, you can use any song if you change up the details of the activity a bit, use a song in your language, etc. But this song in particular has so much interesting vocabulary and really interesting, ways that things are phrased, and it has a lot of idioms. So you can use this song with many different levels of students. And something we thought would be really a fun and kind of heartwarming activity is to have your student rewrite the chorus of the song to come up with wishes for a loved one of theirs, which follow the format from the chorus of the song, May You. So I hope my wish for all of you is that may you have a wonderful next lesson with your student, and I hope you take some of our tips and tricks into the classroom with you. So keep an eye out for that activity generator. It should be in your email. Give that a click. Wonderful. And lastly, to count your participation towards our professional development at IOR, what we would like for you to do is to comment on this video wherever you're watching it, on our Facebook, on our LinkedIn, on Instagram or YouTube. Comment, let us know the city that you're watching this, or you could share any story like Christina's about listening in a new language, some challenges or some successes that you've had, or maybe that your student has had. So share with us, comment, let us know what city you're listening from, I should say. And little by little, we're going to build an awesome learning community together. So thanks so much for sharing your language at lunch.